Hey guys, so in this video we're going to talk a little bit about being a nerd, because believe it or not, I'm what you would call a bit of an expert on this, and I wanted to share with you some thoughts on how it is to kind of how things start out and how things turn out, or rather how they can turn out if you take things with the right attitude. So let's not kid ourselves. As a kid, like when you're a kid, it is rough. And it kind of depends. I usually say that you can be one of two things, as a child and get away with having some type of meaningful social life. And the first thing is, like, you can either be fat or you can be a little bit socially different. Unfortunately, I was both, which is probably the most unforgivable thing that you can do as a kid. And so you're kind of, let's just say that you get into a situation where it like relentless teasing. You have no idea. I'm pretty sure that if there are any programmers out there, you can probably relate to this as well. Not all programmers start out this way, of course, but I think that every nerd can relate to that at some point. And as you progress through things, you start, because you may or may not have the social skills required to fit in with the popular kids, you kind of get into this natural habit of being on your own and thinking for yourself and stuff like that. That's at least the natural development that I had. And you start at some point getting interested in the sciences and so forth. For me, it was computer programming, and it fit very well with my lifestyle, because I had a lot of time to myself. I didn't have much. Like, I had friends that and friends that I value more than they possibly can imagine, because they kind of saved me from going down a really dark route for a while there. And so I got into programming, and having a lot of thoughts and having a lot of time spent thinking about things is very helpful when you want to do that. So you kind of keep on going down that route. And it was really and I'm gonna be honest, I've met people who have gone down the same route, and they are the people that because I've always wondered where this idea comes from, that programmers and that they are basically socially inept. And trust me, I've talked to so many different companies for different jobs where they just oh, you're a normal person, virtually, almost to the point where they calling me a normal person. I what do you mean? Because then they tell me that a lot of the developers and engineers that they meet are social outcasts, if you will. They are extremely high on the introvert scales. It's nothing bad. It's just that they have gone down that road. And I think, if we're being honest here, I think that's the stereotypical way that people look at programmers and people who are good with sciences and math and so forth. It's not the case all the time, but I think that that's where the stereotype is coming from anyway. And so I started thinking about why it is that I feel like myself and others who are doing development and aren't going that far down on the introvert scale, what the difference would be. And I can't speak for the colleagues that I have that are, fairly social and they like to hang out, and some of them are extreme sporters and they still do programming, which is pretty cool. I think it's really cool, actually. But from my perspective, it seems to me as the main difference between just being a nerd, because being a nerd is not a bad thing. It's a really good thing. Trust me. It's one of the best things ever, because the way that I see it is that if you have a healthy curiosity about higher things such as programming, for example, you are going to get rewarded later in life. Trust me. If you're if you're a teenager watching this, trust me, don't give up on computer programming and stuff like that, because it will reward you a lot in the future. I mean, when I go back to my hometown, all the popular kids that drank all the time and were basically having parties all the time and were the really, really, really popular kids, not a single one of them doesn't work either at a fairly low level, like minimum wage type of job. Most of them have more kids than they can really support, and not a single one of them has any type of meaningful career. And the way that I think about it is that they lived the glory days of their life when they were 19 or 16, usually, and that's where they stayed. They have nothing. There's no future. There's nothing to work towards, because they never ever built up the type of character that is required and that you develop when you aim a little bit higher than that, or when you don't naturally have that popularity and good looks and all of that stuff. And that's usually what I see. Most of the people that I work with today, who are extremely talented, well paid, good looking, because these are the people who are nerds, like real nerds. They love something, they dedicate all their time to it, and then they keep on developing for the rest of their life. They don't stop, and they keep on going, and they keep on growing. And it may not feel like that when you're a kid, because it's rough. Trust me, I was there. It is rough, but it gets better. The one thing that I noticed, that, as I was saying earlier, the thing that I urge you not to do, which is hopefully going to save you from becoming too much of an introvert, and that is to mistake having your own thing and doing something you love and kind of being on your own for fear. Because there's a big difference. I have met people who have convinced themselves that they don't like socializing and being with the popular kids, because who needs it, right? I mean, I'm so above it. They use it's a defense mechanism. They can't socialize in an effective manner. They can't be active within a social group. So they convince themselves that they don't want that anyway, and they retract into themselves. And that's weakness, in my opinion. That is it's very destructive behavior, because then you're not developing yourself as you should. You're simply you're treating your if it's programming, you're treating programming as this escape from bettering yourself. At least that's the way I think about it. The same thing with people who play like online games and so forth. It becomes a destructive thing when it could be something truly great. And the way that I would suggest that you handle this is to allow yourself to be that nerd. Allow yourself to love the thing that you be passionate, like love it. I love every single day I wake up in the morning. I wake up before my alarm bell rings, because I'm excited about the next video or the next piece of software I'm going to build or the next thing. None of my old classmates have that. All they talk about is how they complain about their kids, and they complain about not having enough vacation time. And I have never had that problem. I love every second of my life. And I did that because I kept on working. I knew that it was going to get rough. I knew that being a nerd and like being into something is going to take a lot of time. But I kept at it, and I kept pushing, and it has worked out very well. So, don't let people discourage you from pursuing that thing that you're so passionate about. Be a nerd, but don't, and please listen to me now, don't use it as an excuse for talking to people and improving in other areas. If you're anything like me, you have to pursue being a well-rounded person. You don't have to be like the life of the party. You don't have to be the fitness guru of the world, but you should take care of your body, and you should socialize with people. And trust me, in time, you will become a truly astonishing person, and somebody people really want to hang out with. Trust me. Just trust me.